Hiya, I'm Chris Parkin. I'm here today with the new Yukon Sightline N470. I'm going to zero this afternoon in daylight, and tonight I'm going foxing. Welcome to the Night Vision Show. Well, I'm out tonight with the new Yukon Sightline N470. This is the latest update to the Yukon Photon range, which started out about 5 years ago. Then we moved on to the XT with 6.5 magnification, the 6 magnification RT. Lots of people put doublers on, and lots of people use things like adjustable mounts and things to get them zeroed. We don't need much of that now. Image quality is improved, and the zeroing range is far better. Focusing on things like this little dial on top are far easier because you've got nice webs and it's literally fingertip light. I do like the new adjuster, and you've got things like IPX4 IPX4 waterproof rating, which is a military standard, blah blah blah. Magnification runs from 6 to 24 power, and you've got the picture-in-picture facility as well. Slight downside is you've got to go into the menu structure to set the picture-in-picture running each time you turn the unit on. If you turn it off completely and then turn it back on, yes, you've got to start picture-in-picture up again. I'm a bit 6 of one, half a dozen the other. I quite like picture-in-picture, but actually I tend to find it a little bit less confusing if I run it at 6 or 8 power, and if I do need to dial up, I've then got the time to dial up generally. It takes a couple of clicks just to get the right menu in the primary structure using the top button, and you dial up in 0.1 increments all the way up to 24 power. Usually about 16, 18 is by far plenty. It's using a 1280 by 720 CMOS sensor. This is transmitting through to the image screen, and you've got image focus back here for the screen, and that focuses on the actual target in the distance. You've got a 4.1 degree field of view, which I find quite spacious. It feels pretty much like a regular sort of 6-8 power day scope in use most of the time. Slight downside is that when you do use it in the daylight, it is better, the image quality is better, the contrast is better, you're not phased quite as badly by incoming sunlight. But the illuminator, which you may or may not mount on the left side for a right-handed shooter, and the one that's in position for standard, which will be blocking the offside view of a left-side shooter. It rates detection range up to 450 meters, which I actually believe quite thoroughly. I do like the onboard illuminator. The only downside is with it, it doesn't have a beam control dial, so you can't change the side of the spot. There's a button on the back which gives you 1, 2, 3 power settings, and a long hold turns it off, and it all runs off the DNV battery system, which is a cracking little unit. Comes with its own charger, and you can use the little battery cage with 4 AA's in that if emergency happens. One of the great things about it is you can run it on 3 rifles with A, B or C setups. These will control any of 10 zeroing distances for each rifle, and you've got 6 reticle choices in 6 colour options with reds, whites, greens and blacks. You can have quite a small reticle or a large reticle, but you can use a very pinprick green or red dot in the centre of it. These I quite like. I like the versatility, I like the variability. There's a cant indicator as well. The cant indicator is 2 little arrows either side of the screen which tell you if you're tipping the rifle or not. It's quite handy in the dark, but I mean my land's got a lot of fence posts and things on it, so you always have a good idea of where roughly level is. What can I say about it? Well, I wish they'd do 10mm clicks, because 10mm clicks work with common ballistic computers, ballistic solvers like Kestrels and iPhone apps. The 7.5mm click 100 meters is technically quite good. It's nice and fine, and as you scale it through the zoom settings, it will give you more precision as you go up there, because when you double the magnification you effectively halve the click size, so you end up with something like a 3.75 clicker, then half of that again, which you're never going to use. 7.5mm is nice and fine, but it's hard to work out ballistically. The new sensor, the new screen gives you quite a fine field of view, fine picture quality, and I've got good headshot aiming on hot foxes at 300, 325 meters. I didn't take the shots, but I can still do that, and that's, to me, is what testing is. One of the big drawbacks with the original Photon was they could be quite difficult to zero. They had limited travel, and you often had to use mounting systems with adjustments in them, so you could alter the mechanical setup of the scope. This doesn't have that problem. You've got a lot more reticle movement on it. It is a moving reticle system, so it doesn't always look necessarily deadly in the center, but that can change a little bit as you zoom the scope up. Fear not though, it does hold zero, and because it's a Picatinny mounting system, if you use a torque wrench on screws thus, it will come off and go back on with a click. 3 Newton meters I've been using, and guess what? Perfect, lovely. Going back to the illuminator, because you can't control the beam size, I've seen foxes 250, 300 meters out with it, and I can see hares with them as well. I get good eye shine, I get decent body contrast. The downside is, with a very broad spread on this beam, that light reflecting from intermediate topography or features causes the unit to dim down, so you lose that. If you've got the center of your vision and the reticle on the target, but there's light bouncing from something closer, dims down the whole image. Using an aftermarket illuminator with an adjustable beam on it allows you to pinpoint that beam. I quite like it as a diamond, you know, get the diamond shape, and I have the bottom of the diamond level with the reticle, so that most of my light's spilling above. It's easy to mount the N470 to a Picatinny rail. This is a 9/16 socket mounted on a torque wrench. If I spin those loose, it will just lift off, pop it back down, same position, nip them back up front and rear, make sure it's in line. As soon as it's snug in line, torque them down, click, click, just a little bit of pressure forwards, and that's set at 4 Newton meters for a perfect return to zero. The Sightline takes about 6 seconds to light up from a single press here. A medium hold switches the screen off, and the long hold gives you the usual familiar pulsar Yukon 3, 2, 1, completely offsetting. I do like this new control dial. It's one of the best ones I've used so far because it completely differentiates between rotary control and pressing control, and one doesn't affect the other. Too many dials I've used are either too delicate, not tactile enough, or when you push you can't help but turn, or when you turn you can't help but nudge the top. I like this, it's cracking. You've got about 50mm eye relief with the rubber bellows. There's a vent hole in it so you don't create too much vacuum. Like any bellows system though, if you're peering at it for a long time, the heat from your face does tend to cause a little bit of condensation on the internal screen. It evaporates within seconds though. This can be taken off if you really want to in daylight. It's not quite as quick as the magnetic one on the Thermions though. Internal screen focus is done here, and you've got an HDMI port on the left if you do want to record video footage from it. I start out zeroing any rifle with a large white target and a single spot in the centre. I think this just simplifies everything because you know where you're aiming, and any bullet that strikes you know where it was aimed at before it hit the target. This means that when you move on to zero things, you're not moving anything in the wrong direction because you're second guessing the wrong bullet hole. You can see I'm using a spotting scope here. I just think it makes everything more easy and assured. Although the sight picture on the N470 is far better in daylight than the Photon ever was, it just makes sure I'm not making any mistake on bullet holes or sometimes even a fly landing on the target. A long press on the centre control dial brings you back into the menu, and I'm just going to tweak my zero at 100 meters. I'm going to go from y equals -42 to y equals -43. X is still on 39, or minus 39 rather, and now my zeroing coordinates are saved. Back through the menu structure, back to the shooting screen. Fresh target, 3 rounds. I've changed to a black spot because it gives me a little bit more contrast against the white background for daylight. Okay, I'm very happy with that. I think I just want 1 click upwards. I'm not really one for wasting loads of ammunition on range, so I've just done a few test targets here. I've got A, B and C. I've got 100 meter zero, 200 meter with 4 clicks on, and then I put 12 clicks on in total for a sort of approximate 300 meter zero. But I'm going to measure these when I get home, and I'm going to calculate precisely against my known ballistic solutions for the ammunition, and I'm going to reprogram all the zero distances. Here you can see we've got a wicked light bolted on the side. This gives me the adjustable spot size I need from the beam. I've also got a remote control for intensity and on-off. Changing the spot size is mandatory because it can control your whole visual situation. You can see here I've actually used a slightly improvised setup with a Burris Signature Z-ring to give me absolute lockdown control on where that's pointing. I like the fact that Yukon have put a 10mm aperture in the lens cap. This gives you much better brightness control in daylight and a much longer depth of field. In theory, this is going to work. I haven't done it yet. And it has. I've been using this Yukon Sightline N470 for a couple of weeks now. I've been out 6 or 7 times after foxes with it. I am very pleased with it. I've been using the Yukon Photons for quite a few years, and this Sightline is a big step up. It's £889.95. It's jumped up about £200 in price since the last version, which was the RT, which was a 6 magnification. This is 60-24, but the control functions, the illuminator, the focusing, the screen inside and the sensor itself all give a much richer picture, and it's far more usable. I find it's easier to use in daylight when zeroing, which is very important because with 10 distances that can be held in the memory for each rifle, and bear in mind you can have 3 rifles zeroed for this, each of those distances needs setting up very carefully because although complicated, it does give you amazing capability to take shots at longer distance. Tonight's foxing trip has involved a lot more walking than I was expected, but I've just slung the recon sticks and rifle as one unit over my shoulder. It's actually hands-free and surprisingly easy to carry, so you keep living and learning with these things, don't you? I do like them. See you in a bit.